the potential government regulation of chassis and the creation of gray pools have been a bit of a controversial topic in the media recently. What are your thoughts on this? I think we're going to link to a DCLI blog in the show notes as well. So if you want to learn more about this, definitely go to the show notes to check that out. But what are your thoughts on this? And what should transportation organizations be thinking about or maybe preparing for as the debate just rages on?
Yeah, I'd start by clarifying that the government already regulates chassis. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulates chassis safety, and we think that is certainly an appropriate and important role for the government to play. But what's been topical of late is really whether or not the government should regulate chassis provisioning models or business models in a direct way. I'm afraid proponents of regulation are kind of being opportunistic here and capitalizing on the supply chain woes that were caused by the pandemic, which, by the way, impacted every element of the supply chain, not just chassis, to really push an agenda that enriches a small group of people to the detriment of everyone else. Our market is changing rapidly. We are designing new solutions every day based on what the customers tell us they want, and we don't think the government should get in the way of that. So, candidly, there are already so many different chassis models that it's actually hard to imagine how a one-size-fits-all kind of gray pool approach could even be implemented. Mm-hmm. And then if you think about any regulation other than a one-size-fits-all approach, then the government's really picking winners and losers. So, for example, somewhere between a quarter and a third of all chassis moves in this country are moved with truckers that are either owned or controlled, chassis which are either owned or controlled by truckers. So that would be like those net lease products that I described. So I would ask, how would truckers like it if the government suddenly says, hey, all those chassis now have to be turned over to a third-party gray pool manager who's going to tell you how much you can earn, how many assets you need to have in the pool, send you a bill for maintenance and repair every month? I think they would hate it. Yeah. And if you then say, well, no, let's not worry about those, my answer would be, well, if those are outside of the scope, then how is that anything other than the government kind of playing favorites? So, proponents of regulation like to tout choice in quotation marks. Yeah. What they're really pushing is the opposite of choice. We at DCLI support real operational choice. That's why we support truckers that want to control their own chassis via our long-term leasing channel. That's why we've worked with shippers to develop dedicated pools to support their specific operating model. That's why we're in favor of competitive pools in every market where chassis providers have to fight for business by improving quality and reliability at a reasonable price. If you think about Los Angeles alone, right, that's where you have one of the largest, if not the largest, gray pool in the country. It's called the Pool of Pools. There are at least 6 other competitive pools in that market, along with a pretty robust amount of trucker controlled chassis. So you have to ask yourself, if a single gray pool is the answer, why would all of these different options have popped up? Right. And I think the bottom line is there is more choice today in the market than there has ever been. Mm-hmm. And government intervention, as contemplated, would really send us backwards. It would severely undermine investment in our industry. And so our view is, let's not upend a market based on a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. Let's not play favorites and treat certain chassis providers differently than others. Mm-hmm. Instead, we should let the customers who are actually paying for the chassis and companies like DCLI who actually own the chassis to continue to engage in a free marketplace.
Yeah, and I just feel like it would have a really big impact on customer experience. And so if the customer service and the customer experience goes down because of the pool and because there's no other choice, we've seen it happen before in other industries. That doesn't go so well. People will start doing their own thing if they're not being treated the way that they want to be treated when they're spending their money.
Yep. I mean, it's in economics, it's the free rider problem. And if we're all just going to put assets into some third-party gray pool, what incentive is there to differentiate, to innovate, to have the best service, the best quality if, everything's just in a giant gray